Prislovic keeps it alive. Oh, Crawford, the fancy footwork and a fabulous finish. JackJumpers chance. Magnay, 2 on the clock. Oh, Magnay. And have a look at what it means to Scott Roth. Bloody good. How good. These JackJumpers. They just never say die.
Welcome back to Tasmanian Takeover, your Tasmania JackJumpers podcast, brought to you by The Basketball Fix, www.thebasketballfix.com, for all your NBL insights and player rankings and free agency and all that good stuff. And we are doing part 2 of our player rankings for the past NBL season and our Tasmania JackJumpers. And of course, I couldn't be doing this without my 2 expert, I use the term loosely, panelists. We have JD and JB, and yet again, watch me balls this up all night as I sit there and work with the 2 Js. How are we, gentlemen?
Good, mate. I'm excited. I'm excited every week. Well, I'm particularly excited this week. Coming off our record view episode, apparently what the algorithm was missing was JB's face on the pod. That was
wow, man. If you want to get real views, I should look like one of those people that come out of the courthouse that have those pixels all around them. Grand views at that point. No, like I'd like to thank my computer for not crashing and refreshing every 45 seconds to a minute to really bump those up. I do want to apologise though to the viewers. I decided to play a drinking game, so every time I said the word in the last podcast, I took a shot. And I spent 3 days relatively unwell. So I can imagine how everyone else felt too. I'll try and cut that down this week. But no, great to be back on. Good little episode last week. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I'm certainly not going to be taking any credit on that. It was a pretty topical conversation that we had as far as player rankings and things. So hopefully we can double that up again this week. If you're going to keep doing that, I mean, you'd be the most watched podcast on the planet. Even Joe Rogan would be worried. But something tells me things might plateau a little bit. Sorry for the false hope, fellas.
Yeah, no, I've got a feeling Rogues might be a little bit safe for a little while anyway. But yeah, absolutely. Do keep liking, sharing, and getting amongst all our episodes and heading over to the socials. And do make sure you keep an eye on our website, beacons.ai/Tasmanian Takeover. Over this off-season, particularly now that we're wrapping up the player rankings, we will probably have a couple of weeks where there is no content. I'm sure JB will get in the lab. I'm sure JD, there we go. There's the first slip up for the night. We'll get in the lab and clip up a whole bunch of stuff over time. But what we intend on doing is we'll still be bringing you content, and we will be catching up throughout the off-season to talk about what's going on with the team as far as free agency goes. We will be doing some rumor episodes and some episodes with the main Basketball Fix team. So keep an eye out for that. I think JD's up first, and I'll be up in a couple of weeks' time to sit there and talk to Josh about what's going on there. And then we'll also keep an eye on what's going on in the NBL 1. And of course, we're all barracking for the Hobart Chargers, or if you're up north, I should be fair and say Northwest Thunder or the Tawns. But of course, it's all about the Chargers. So join the Stampede.
I'll slip that $5 to you later. Thanks for that.
You're welcome, mate. You're welcome.
Anytime.
All right. So the first ticket we have on the docket is JD issues an apology. Well, to be honest with you, this is probably not the first apology you should ever issue. So what are we apologizing for, JD?
Mate, I've had an absolute nightmare of a week. My DMs blew up after last week's episode.
What, so you got one message?
I got. I made a monumental stuff up last week, and you boys, I applaud you for not bringing it up, actually. When we were talking about Fabian Krislovic, I mentioned that if he was a Shakespearean play, he'd be the Tale of Two Cities.
Right.
Well, the librarians of Tasmania have come out and let me know that the Tale of Two Cities was actually... I've forgot. What's the other famous writer? Charles Dickens.
Oh, right.
Oh, mate, my face is red, and to all the librarians and theatre majors that listen to the pod, I apologise single-handedly.
This is why I stick to modern day pop culture, because clearly you were able to get away with that with us. But if you're going to shit the bed, mate, you did it royally. How you mixed up
Yeah,
Shakespeare and Dickens, I have no idea.
Oh,
That's
how
like
does it happen?
To the reading world, wouldn't that be like mixing up Star Wars and Star Trek?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, don't cross that line. And I made that mistake in school. Don't cross that line. You mentioned about mistakes, though, JD. I had one myself. I said Tyler Johnson played for Perth. He didn't. He played for Brisbane. And we're a basketball podcast. We didn't pick up on that. There you go. So,
we didn't pick that up.
No, that certainly talks about our audience. I'm glad the basketball podcast is seriously delivering for Dickens and Shakespeare people. Thank you very much. Boy.
Very, very, very highbrow audience we've got here at the Tasmanian Takeover.
Absolutely.
That's why we got collared shirts this evening.
Exactly right. We do try to dress up for the matter just to hide the, what do I say? You can't polish a turd. Yes, you can. Take a look at this. All right. Moving right along. You also want to talk football. So I'm going to give you, you're on the clock. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to a minute max. Go.
Well, JB said we wouldn't be talking about Richmond again on this podcast for the rest of the year because they weren't going to win a game all season, was the commentary. And then they come out and they have a good win against my arch nemesis, the Blues. So well done, JB. But would you like a bit of gloating time?
No, for fear of safety for myself and others. In saying that, I did say that we'd win 4 games. So I'm 25% complete on my season. I'm very happy with that. And to be honest, with everything that was going on for Thursday night, I really didn't have much time to sit down. I sat down and actually watched the last 10 minutes of it. I was pretty happy with it.
Oh, yeah.
Got the win, beat Carlton. We rallied from 41 down. We were 8-goal underdogs, and we got the win. So I was pretty happy with that. Sam Layla got the nomination for Rising Star. Toby Nankervis had a monster game. Can't ask for much more there. Pretty stoked. Now I've got 3 for 22 more games. I don't know what that percentage is. I don't like it, but I'm optimistic. If we've got 1 out of 1, we realistically can go undefeated. It is still a chance.
If I can make the win relevant to this podcast, there was actually 4 Tasmanians playing for Richmond that night. Nank the Tank mentioned.
Yeah,
Seth Campbell did a backflip.
Of the decade. Very happy with that. This will be a retro for you. The Richmond historian, Rhett Bartlett, the son of Richmond legend Kevin Bartlett, actually pointed out that when we were such an underdog last time we beat Carlton in any sort of situation was 1988, and players were literally cartwheeling on a wet day at the MCG round 10, 1988, something like that. So I don't know whether that was meant to be a throwback from Seth Campbell. He wasn't born.
I reckon.
Then I don't even think
he's a historian for sure.
Seth Campbell was probably barely born when I was in primary school, and I'm not that old. So it was really impressive to see that. Yep. I was stoked.
All right, Berto, you can have your podcast back.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're done now. We're done.
Are you a Richmond supporter too, JD?
Nah, I'm a Pies supporter. So any win.
Yeah, no, you're right, Berto. Keep going. You're fine.
Yeah, right. Before this gets nasty.
No, right, to be honest, that was awesome. Watching you belt Port Adelaide by 15 goals. Like, totally for it. I'm not a Collingwood fan, but hey, I'm not a Port fan either.
It was beautiful to watch.
Right, moving right along. Had enough of you lot.
All right.
Nest or notice, little bit of news. Some really nice news, actually. Our man, the janitor, Jared Weeks, extends for 2 years as assistant coach of the Jackies, which is fantastic. So he's setting himself up quite nicely. He's got his head coaching role for the Hobart Chargers. He's got a couple more years under Roffey at the JackJumpers. I'm wondering if there's a bit of succession planning going on. What do you reckon, boys?
It's good. JB, we call him the janitor because he doesn't look like a basketballer. He back when he was playing for the JackJumpers, he looked like he rocked up one day and they were a man short and he was just mopping the floors. And they said, "Hey, do you want a game?" So we call him the janitor or greenskeeper Willie. So you'll have a bit of more of an insight about Weeksy. Tell us a bit about him.
Look, I've been to training a couple of times, doing a lot of the media stuff for the Chargers this year, wanting to get in touch with the players and the coaches and really try and negotiate and work with them. What works best for your brand? What works best for your players? How are we able to engage with you and the club successfully so we're not interrupting trainings, we're not interrupting prep, all of that stuff. Managed to be into training to watch the team a couple of times. They are firing on all cylinders. Weeksy is a coach that has the respect of the players because he's been there and he's done that. He's fresh out of the game. but he's not a screamer. He's not a yeller. He's demanding. There's no doubt about it. He wants excellence. He wants to see the players deliver, but he also wants to have them, as one. He wants them to show respect. When you see a player walk in the door, you'll see a player that he will go, or they will go to every single person that's part of that training, look them in the eye, shake their hand. Look, we're all in this together. I was there. Players were coming up to me. Oh, I'm sitting there in a hoodie. I'm just here to grab an interview with a player, here to chat with Jared about organising press during the year, things like that. And yet they've all got the time to shake your hand, say good day. So a real culture setter as well. And that does come from the Jackies, but also speaks of his professionalism. Jared is an A1 level person. He's an A1 level coach. He was a very, very good player. Jokes aside, obviously, got that scruffy look. But Weeksy could play. He was a really good guard. He's a former charger himself. He's been to those levels, whether it's going to New Zealand, whether in the NZNBL, whether it's in the Australian NBL, NBL 1, Siebel, all of that there. He's got the experience, but he also has the respect of the players, knowing that he was a player himself and that he is now a coach. Succession plan, I don't know. I think that's certainly, that's an obvious picture to paint. Hey, Scott's probably got a couple of years left on his contract, said it was going to be his last contract. The other side, you've got to look at that there. Mark Radford's been around for quite a long time as well. Radford's been over and had that summer league experience with the Spurs recently. We know he's been an assistant around the league prior, been around the game for umpteen amount of years, Tasmanian as well. So I don't know whether there's necessarily a succession plan there, but there's really some positives coming out and around this team right now. Weeksy signing on is another one. Be interested to see how the team now starts to look, now that your coaching staff's starting to be a little bit more into concrete. What sort of players are they wanting to coach? What are they wanting to be a part of their system? So succession plan, I'm not willing to go right there at the moment, but having seen Jared as a coach and who Jared is as a player, an absolute layup of a signing, a must-have of a signing.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't Weeksy play for the Auckland, how do you say it, the Tuatara?
I think so.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. Follow that club back. Turns out they were the Southern Huskies.
Yeah, there's a lot of, another story for another day.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say. Another story for another day.
The Wikipedia reading on that one is quite entertaining, and that's allows you to go down the rabbit hole.
Put it this way, I wouldn't have thought that the Wikipedia page would be the equivalent of wiping your finger over a dusty cabinet at your grandmother's.
Yeah,
that's extreme surface level.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I'm just from a personal standpoint, a professional standpoint, I'll leave that one there. You can put two and two together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All I know is when I was reading it, felt like, what is it, 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or something like that. I'm just like, oh, this is all very interesting. But anyway.
We all read Goosebump books at school, right? Where you got to choose what option you went to.
Yeah, the old choose your adventure. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure the listeners didn't join in just to hear us prattle on all night. They want to hear the second half of the player rankings. It was a bit of fun last week. Here's how it generally works if you're tuning in for the first time this week. We're going to go through each of the players. If you're watching on the YouTube, you'll get to see some clips that JD has kindly picked. We're going to have a bit of a yarn about each of the players, give them a ranking out of 10. Look, the end of the day is we're being firm but fair, but also having a bit of fun with this. So, take our opinion with a grain of salt, if you will. Maybe even go and have a spoonful of sugar as well, because you might need a little sweetness, whatever your poison is. And to kick us off, possibly JD's most favourite player all year, we're going to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, the teapot, Jordan Crawford. So, if we look at the
teapot,
stats...
Can I get a clarification? The teapot? Short and stout. Here's his handle. Is that what we're talking about?
He's short and stout.
He's short and stout.
Damn.
So now I'm going to stipulate when you give your ranking, you cannot base this on the man's haircut. Okay? Can we leave the barbershop talk to you've already done enough of that. He's got some pretty good stats, but the question is, were the stats what people were expecting all season? So we've got stats of 16 points per game, 4.4 assists, 1.9 rebounds. For me, I'm giving him a solid 8. I think when he was on and on hard. But was he exactly what we needed all year? Heck, he had a shooting slump right in the middle of it. It was quite dangerous. Like, it was really scary the way he was shooting and what we needed. I'm docking a couple of points for that, but a solid 8 from me. Boys, take it away.
Oh, mate, I'll make no secret of the fact that he was my favourite. He was a little bit quiet at the start of the year. Sean MacDonald got his injury. Sean MacDonald come back from his injury, and Scott Roth put him aside and said, "Jordan, we want to try something. We're going to try you off the bench." And he just exploded. There were times during this year where Jordan Crawford looked like the only player on the field. He was carrying the team on his shoulders for mine.
What
did I say?
Field again.
We started talking about footy, didn't we?
Yeah, no, that's the only reason why I pulled you up this week. JB, what do you reckon?
Mate?
No, you're still going, eh?
Yeah, I'm still going. Look, the one moment, if you like, that really summed his season up for me was the very last game where the reporter asked him, "Hey, there's a chance this could be your final game in Tasmania," and he got choked up. This guy he's been here for 2 years, but he's an honorary Tasmanian in my eyes. He just loves the place.
Agreed.
100%. I mean, when you really want to look at the narrative of that championship, a man with the initials JC got us a winner on Easter Sunday, right?
Yeah.
You can't write that any better. I don't know how many people didn't pick up on that, but you cannot write that story any better. We're talking about a guy here. He's 5'6", right? And I've met JC. He's 5'6". He's not very tall at all, but he's nothing but heart. He's nothing but passion. And when you talk about him going to the bench there, guys, how many games had Jordan Crawford in his professional career come off the bench for before that? I know the number. I just want to see whether you guys have a clue.
That's like asking me.
Close to none.
That's like asking me to recite stats. Honestly,
Zero.
Yeah,
and
right.
he's a guy who willingly, for the betterment of the team, for the betterment of his own career, certainly for the team, but you would think for his own career, you know what? Jordan Crawford could sit there and go, "Hey, 30-piece Easter Sunday, won a championship. You know, you go and tell someone else they can go and sit on the bench." Didn't do it. Willingly sacrificed his own game. Again, spoke about it a lot last week, and I'm going to say it a lot this week because of how the team was constructed. Best ability is availability. JC was available, and he was willing to do whatever he wanted. You've said 8, Berto. I know we've had a shooting slump there. I go between him being the first and the second best player on this team. There's a guy that is coming up that I'm going to mention there, and I think it might shock people who I mention. I've got no issues with putting JC well above that. I would say I'd be close to a 9 for JC this year.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair.
Same.
And look, it was a stroke of genius for Roth to get him to come off the bench. I think it really helped. And yeah, it absolutely shows that he was a culture player to be able to sit there and go, okay, I'm happy to come off the bench. And I think it really worked. It really worked well. 8, 9. Yeah, easy. All right, the next one. No secret is a favourite of mine. Majok Deng. Now, he's a man who I think was just exactly what the team needed in the previous season. He was often referred to himself as being called the forgotten one, or referred to himself as the forgotten one. He is not forgotten anymore. Deng, when he hit the court, was just, every minute counted with him. And even when he had a shocker, sometimes his shockers were better than some of the players' best days. So I'm for that. I'm giving Deng's getting my 9. In all honesty, Deng's getting my 9. He may not have as many, his stats may not be as high as others, but I'm looking at the effectiveness. His effectiveness all year round, all season was just unreal. And he was missed. When he was off with that injury, he was seriously missed. Now, yes, it's a culmination of all the injuries we had, but damn did we feel it when he wasn't there for those couple of rounds. JB, kick us off.
Yep, there's the other guy that I would have had at the top of the list.
Yeah,
I'd no question of that whatsoever. Easy 9. Easy 9. Here's a guy that was expected, and we talked about it last week. Where would a player have sat? I would love to have seen what would have happened to Majok Deng when you go, hey, you're going to be first rotation off. you're going to be the pinch hitting scorer here. Earlier in the season, and I'd moved seats this year, so I'd previously been under the basket down near the bench, asked for a better seat because as much as I loved sitting near the bench, couldn't see half the game when Will Magnay was on the bike. Couldn't see it when Majok Deng was on the bike. All the guys stood up. You know, it's just easier to see. So I've moved sideways. And speaking with a young fella who's doing really well in his basketball career, and Majok was taking shots and doing things. So is he really that good of a shooter? And I went, he can shoot. He's a shooter. People don't like to say it because, he's 6'8", he looks awkward. No, he's a shooter. And the second he'd get the ball, I just lean over, hey, can he shoot? And he'd shoot the ball. It's just money. I mean, this is a guy who's become, they talk about him being the forgotten one. He's a big moment, the big game player. Yep. Like, why are we sitting here having these conversations? We've seen a guy do it in the championship series. We've seen him come through in a regular season. We've seen him hit big shots in the clutch in the regular season. Yeah, the injury was there, and it probably does contradict a little bit about best abilities, availability. But for what he was able to deliver and what was expected of him compared to what would have initially been laid out this season, no issues with a 9 whatsoever. Wouldn't have been shocked if he had won that team MVP. I would dare say that if he was on that free market, which I'm pretty sure is he signed to us next season?
I'm pretty sure he is.
I certainly hope so. And if he wasn't, I would be highly encouraging him to find a bigger wallet or a bigger check, because this is a guy that demands a payday. This is a guy that demands respect on and off the floor. Great guy off the floor too. Run into him a couple of times. The initial Tassie Summer Slam here. This is a sort of a local league that we're running at the moment. He was there with his partner Nairi. So Nairi's a former college player. She was playing in the women's competition. And Majok's just there with the kids, sitting there watching. Other than the fact you would see, geez, he's a really tall guy at a basketball court. He's probably a basketballer. He's sitting there with the kids. The kids are running to mum on the bench. He's grabbing the water bottles for the girls on the team. He's filling them up, having a chat. You know, I had a bit of a joke with him. So, geez, Jook's pretty easy for you. He said, looking after the kids. I said, what do you mean? I said, the kids just, they're over there hanging with mum and stuff. He's like, yeah, man, he's, just like chilling out and being real relaxed. So even though he talks about being that forgotten one, he's a fierce competitor, absolutely lovely dude. So, don't let that mistake you either. Like, real hard worker, really lovely dude. Another big reason that this team's had success, right? I got no issues with a 9.
I love that story. I think early on in the podcast, I was saying to JD that one of my first memories with Jook in community was the kids and I were down at, actually, I think the whole family was down at Cooley's Hotel. Yep. And Jook was down there with his family. And as it turns out, my daughter's playing on the pool table with his daughter. And I'm just like, this is pretty cool. It's one of the things I do love about the Jackie's being in community the way to wear. And it's like, that's pretty awesome. He's just chilled out.
100%.
JB, JD, your thoughts? Bugging you too.
His daughter was potting shots in every corner without missing. I don't know what more to add. Sentiments echoed 100%. He was absolutely outstanding and one of probably very few players on the team who probably didn't have further to go as far as effort and impact went. He was just everywhere. I echo what you said about his shooting. I love his little shoulder wiggle. I hope that never goes away.
That KD shuffle.
The Majuk wiggle. Yeah, it's fantastic. Look, I look at Majok Deng's season and I can't really pick where he could have improved. He did just an amazing job the entire season, apart from when he probably tripped over Mags at training and rolled his ankle. Look,
it wasn't Mags. I think it was Gorjak.
GG, that's right.
That's
right. During that period where they were doing full contact sports during training, we had 3 go down in 1 week.
Kingsborough Sports was more of an MMA cage.
I'm giving Majuk a 10.
A 10? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's talk probably our most controversial player when we're talking stats, performance throughout the year, and expectations. Milton Doyle, MD. This is a different one because Milt has been pretty open, particularly in one of the presses. He said he didn't have the offensive season he would have liked. But in the same breath too, he really stepped up in other areas. And for that, I'm giving him an equal 8 with JC. It was really evident when he was on the court that, okay, if he wasn't on offense for that particular night, while commentators and whatever else were ragging on him for not, dropping a 30 piece or whatever, you could see he was playing defense really well. He was acting as the floor general. You could really see the way the team was glued together. And for that, his impact with the team throughout the season was, I felt, seriously felt. So for me, Milton 8. JD, you kick off.
I can I know I got in trouble for giving Clint a 4.5 last week. I can only compare players on other seasons. Like I want to mark him down because he wasn't the player we saw in the championship year where he was our most consistent player. He won games off his own boot or his own hand. I don't know what you say in basketball. But he was still our second highest pointer. There was only a handful of games where the top scorer wasn't JC or Milton Doyle. 14.6 points he still averaged in a year that he didn't think he contributed offensively enough. 4.2 assists and 5 rebounds effectively. That's a really solid really solid defensive year from Milton, despite at times when we needed him not stepping up scoring wise. So it's a really tough one to give a score for. My gut says 6 for Milton, just because of what he produced purely in a championship season where he was, I think, our best player. You had to give the MVP to Jack because of what he did during the MVP series, the championship series. But I think Milton was our best player last year, so a bit of a down year for Milton for mine.
All right, we've got 8 and 6. Where do you sit, JB?
I mean, it's sort of hard to tell, right? So, I mean, if you're going to look, I'm just going to look at his couple of seasons here that he's had, right? So, clearly down on scoring by 1.1 points. Rebounds about even. Assists down by about 1. Defensively, you'd argue close to his best season. I mean, his first season is pretty good defensively as well. Did shoulder more minutes this year, to be fair, and was a little more inefficient from a scoring standpoint. But here's the other thing people probably need to look at for the whole league as well. This is probably, from a solo scoring aspect of what players were pouring in. I mean, Bryce Cotton goes on a Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan-esque scoring tear, right? You then have 50-point games left, right, and center. Well, that's what it felt like, at least. Then Chris Golding's, he needs to give it away. Yeah, and now he's just gone and had 40 points and 30 of them were from deep. So when you're trying to measure the standard of a guy who was consistently your best player on a championship team, the best big shot maker on your team, still, like, let's be honest, when the game's on the line, I know we've got Majok, Deng, I know we've got Clint Steindl, but there's still one person I want the ball in the hands of. I don't care what sort of season he's having. So we need to sort of look, I think, looking at that perspective as well. Yeah, we had a down year. The ebbs and flows of the team certainly went with the injuries and certainly went with the form. Things for Milton probably weren't, I'm not saying they were harder this year for him, but there would have been a lot more ease over the last couple of seasons. Jack McVay making arguably the biggest shot in NBL history, certainly the biggest shot in the calendar year of 24 globally in basketball. There's an extra 17, 18 points dragging away. Crawford goes to the bench, so having that immediate takeaway from him is not there. Magnay's not on the floor as much, so immediately there's another takeaway. So you look at the focus of the defense as well. While he's getting his numbers, the inefficiencies are there. There's certainly more focus and drag on him as a player. MacDonald being injured as well didn't help. It's really hard for me to sit there. Again, we're talking about guys that have played the championship for our state. Something we never thought that we'd see. So trying to really get that away. But I think when you look at the fact that scoring was up on an individual standpoint this year, you're trying to measure up to a Bryce Cotton who had one of the best individual seasons, whether they're an import or an Australian ever in this league. You then look at what Chris Golding's trying to pull out, the consistency and the level of the scoring this year, coupled in with the fact that he's now not the focus or constantly now the focus of the defense. I think it explains it there. I'm happy to give him a 7.5, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Sounds fair. Sounds fair. All right, let's get into the young blood. Nick the Dart Stoddart. And look, I think this guy's got a lot of potential. What we saw from him, okay, I think we had a situation not unlike when Roffey brought Sean MacDonald in. Opportune time, able to really show and deliver. And I think he has got a lot of real potential. I'm looking forward to reading the news that he's been re-signed. I don't know anything. I haven't been told anything. I feel it. I feel it in myself that he will get re-signed. I'm giving him a solid 7. And the only reason why I'm down so low on him is, yes, he had some absolutely magic minutes, but I think the best is yet to come from him. I could even be convinced to a 6, in fact, but solid 7. I'm giving him that extra point for just the fact that the opportunity arose and he grabbed it by the balls. JB, go for it.
7 makes sense to me as well. The thing that's remarkable about Nick Stoddart, he saw no minutes, stepped up to his first minutes in a 30-point blowout, then he started.
Yep.
What do we do? What are we doing here? Imagine that in the NBA. Like it's like a Jeremy. Like the only thing that would have changed the game is if he'd have come out and put up Crawford level numbers and done a Jeremy Lin kind of run a la New York 2012. It's the only thing that could have possibly topped it. Stoddart, an NBL 1 player as well, someone that I'd seen. Again, another guy, much like an Archie Woodhill. I put my hand up and go, really? Like, where are we going here? Why is Nick Stoddart being signed to an NBL level deal? Had me sold once he's had that starting minutes. I remember that first game, 9 points. I'm like, damn, he's on pace for 36. This is elite. Those $9 beers started going down very well at that point. You know, absolute bullet line drive jumpers, which is something that'll come with him when he gets his legs under him, be able to actually get that form, understand, okay, pro level got to go up a little bit higher. Your defenders are clearly a bit bigger, a bit quicker. So really good to see him stepping up. I do remember at the end of that first quarter, though, he's down on the opposite free throw line, hands on knees. He's taken in the big ones because he's really started to get in. I can't remember where Bryce Cotton was his first starting assignment. It's like, wow, welcome to the league, young fella. I think Bryce had 30 and 9 in less than a half. We got belted by 30. But a guy that took up the challenge, continues to take up the challenge, really continues to elevate his game. We spoke about him and Brody Nunn, right? I think there's clearly a gap between him and Brody Nunn. Yep, there's probably a bit of length defensively that does help that to get him back into that team consistently. But really happy with his game. Berto, I'm sold on a 7. For what we saw in the limited opportunities, sold on a 7. This kid can play.
Perfect. JD. Oh, my God. I'll get it right soon. This is why we really should have a blooper reel for how many times Berto
I'm actually more offended you're comparing a Richmond supporter and a Collingwood supporter. Don't worry about the initials.
Don't start. Right, JD, go.
Look, if there's one thing I love, it's a player who takes an opportunity and runs with it. We had a shocking year injury wise, and Nick Stoddart was the major benefactor of that. The young bloke's got a lot of minutes this year, just purely that, few blowouts, and Nick Stoddart was just the standout. Those 3 threes he hit in that first quarter against Adelaide were just elite. He looked like the best player on the field, on the court.
I just wanted to Jordan shrug, like, just throw it up there, like, go for it.
Yeah. I just realised
he spoke so well on the one-on-one.
I just said it's our most amateur hour episode ever.
He spoke really well on the one-on-one podcast with Josh Higgins. He talked about how much he's loving Tasmania. And one thing I really loved was he talked about going back to the Ballarat Miners because they had some unfinished business. There was a real loyalty to his NBL 1 team because they must have, you might be able to fill me in here, JB. He feels like they were pretty close to a championship and they had something to prove.
Yeah, they're a pretty competitive team, the Miners, have been for a while. Pretty sure it was Ballarat who came in last year, actually. It was quite funny. They've got some sort of title belt with like a wrestling title belt. I don't know whether it's a hustle belt. I don't know whether it's a rebounding belt, a defensive belt, whatever it is. And it's a full-size championship. Like, it looks like the WWE championship. It's huge. So, you know, they compete a little bit amongst themselves. You mentioned that with the Ballarat Miners. Just to plug some Chargers stuff, if you want to watch Nick Stoddart and the Ballarat Miners take on the Hobart Chargers, join us on April 12th out at Sorrel. Get your tickets at Intix and come and watch some Jackies in action.
I'll be back in the state at that time. I might have to come out there.
Yes.
Give him another contract. Give him another contract, Jack Jumpers. I'm giving him an 8 for this year.
Okay. All right. The Terror, Ruben Tarangi. What can I say? Initially, when he, at the start of the season, saw little glimmers, then there were a couple of games where one could say, okay, was this a good choice? And then suddenly it was like the switch was flicked and Ruben just absolutely destroyed all haters. He had some fantastic games where he just absolutely dominated. And I think from the perspective of fitting into the team, let's not forget the way he stood up the PJC. Just the way he just fit into the team and just his impact was felt. I'm giving a solid 7. I could be swayed to an 8, but just thinking about where I'm ranking everyone else, I'm thinking a really solid, well-earned 7. He was just a glue player, really, at the end of the day, a solid glue player. And yeah, absolute delight to see on the court. And if we re-signed him, it would not shock me. I think that he's really fitted into the team and the culture really well. JD, I'll kick you off first.
Yeah, there was times where I was calling Ruben the Terror Tarangi candidate for MVP. He looked that good. I still reckoned he was robbed in the voting there.
I still reckon you're delirious, but okay.
Thinking about it now, his form lines seemed to follow when Shawnee Mack was in the team or not. I think he was a real beneficiary of the organisation that Shawnee brings to the Jack Jumpers. And honestly, his stats surprised me. 5.1 points a game, 3 rebounds. They're fairly modest numbers. But he had a real impact for about a third of the season, I would say. Like you said, I hope they bring him back next year. I think it can go either way. It's probably depending on who's available in the free agency period, I would say. But there was some amazing moments by Ruben, the Tarangisaurus Rex, my brother calls him. I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna give him a 7.
Beautiful, JB.
If I wanted to look at it, I think he is the opposite personality with Anthony Drimmage. Like if you look at the way their games play, like Ruben to me is the shortest looking bloke at 6'6" I've ever seen. Not many people realise Ruben Tarangi is genuinely 6'6".
Big boy.
But I look at him get on the court and I'm like, oh, you're 6'2". You're a guard. And then you meet him and you're like, oh, holy cow, like you are 6'6". And I think the thing is too, like he's proportionate. Like you don't look at him and go, geez, his arms and legs are huge or, things like that. It's just like, oh, he's a bloke who's proportionally built at 6'6", out on the floor. I think he's just, if you were going to use the term, you would look at Anthony Drimmage as the yin to the yang of what Ruben Tarangi is. They play the same sort of role. They're plug and play guys. Hey, Ruben, we need you off the bench tonight. Sure, coach, no worries. Ruben, we need you to help bring the ball up. Sure, coach, no worries. Can you get on the boards? Sure, coach, no worries. Need you to lock a guy down. Awesome, I've got it. Does it without any complaints. And I didn't realise either. 350 games, the youngest looking veteran in the league.
Yeah.
Yep.
But my goodness, how old is Ruben Tarangi? I had a quick search on that. Happy to run with a 7.
They did
7.5
I think he's only 30, 31 maybe, I think they said.
Yeah,
let's have a look.
He wasn't all that old, and he's still got miles to go.
Yeah, 31 in October. Wouldn't have pictured it.
Yeah.
No way. 350 games, and that's another thing too. Ruben Tarangi is the example of why, if you're good enough in this league and you're a professional in this league, you will last in this league.
Yeah.
There's a lot more Ruben Tarangis that play basketball than there are Bryce Cottons, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
very true.
I think it was the Knucklehead podcast, the guys that do that one in the United States, they actually get invited around, Quentin Richardson, they get invited around to do talks to teams to explain, look, we lasted 15, 16 years. There's more of us than there are Michael Jordan, LeBron James. And I think he's a real standout to say, if you can be a pro, if you can be professional and go about your business, you're going to have a job, you're going to get paid, you're going to get employed, and you're going to play a key role. I think Ruben's an excellent example of that for every young kid out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Our next player, and we're going to have two in this lineup that I'm going to give a score and I'm putting an asterisk on it. Shawnee Mack. I'm giving him a 9. End of story. But I'm putting an asterisk on it because he's only played like a quarter of the season, unfortunately, due to injury. But damn, when he came back from that first injury, it was felt with vengeance. You knew he was back. The team just popped. I mean, we went on that, 8-win winning streak. And I'm not saying that 8 wins was on the back of Shawnee Mack, but it was felt that he was back and the team, all the cogs were there. The machine was well oiled. Everything was going well. The man, when he's on, is just money with his shooting. His plays are fantastic. He's only getting better by the minute, providing injury does not, after a bad injury, doesn't end up becoming a bit of a crutch. Providing that doesn't become the situation, this guy's going to go to the moon and back. So 9 with an asterisk. JB, you first.
Played a quarter of the season, 6. Really easy for me. It's not to criticise his play. I'm with you, Berto. Everything ticks a box when he was there. Key on the crucial 8-game win streak, but he was only available for a quarter of the games. You can't help that with injury. But again, best ability is availability, right? This could be the defining year of Sean MacDonald's career. Hey, that's a fire. That's the Bunsen burner. That's the beaker of water bubbling away and the Bunsen burner under it going, hey, we didn't reach boiling point, but we were on the way. We were well set, ready to go. Big year, big shots, big play. I think, you go to that clubs championship that they went to and you look at the timeline between going from Singapore in that clubs to go to Western Australia to get home and play a home opener. You then, the recovery time on that wasn't great. And that's not Sean's fault. That's the schedule. And we've got one of the best high performance teams in the country for any sport. You look at where Ryan Carroll is as far as a physio and all the great things he's doing with the national teams, going to the Olympics, being heavily involved. One of, if not the best physio in the country. That's the level that we're operating there. Harrison, who does their strength and conditioning, you see the work that they're putting in on game day, the work that they're putting in pre-game day. There's no doubt they've got some of the best recovery and sports science and physical looking after them on the planet. But you've also got to have reasonable time as an athlete to be able to do that. When you look at the schedule from the preseason to that, from the preseason cup to the preseason blitz to getting home, you're on flights all the time. You're always with the team. Trying to actually get your full rehab in is tough. And I think that was ultimately, scheduling was ultimately as much of a problem for that injury recovery as a reoccurrence of the injury. But a really, really nice season. I just have to give it a 6. He played 8 games, 9 games.
Fair. JD?
Yeah, the thing I love about Shawnee Mack is how much better we are as a team with him in the team. He had not modest numbers. I think it was still our 4th highest scoring percentage for the year. He averaged 11.2 points, which is pretty good. What really improved was the games of, like we said before, Ruben Tarangi, Milton, Doyle, players around Shawnee Mack just go to another level. Purely because of his involvement. It's an uncanny ability, and it's hard to see in stats what that provides. I'm sort of more inclined to go along the lines of JB's scoring here because he did miss a lot of basketball, and to be honest, we really needed him. That's not a reflection on his preparation. From what I know, he's a complete professional. He would have taken his rehab totally seriously. But we just want to see more of you next year, Sean. I'm giving him a 7. I'm going to go down the middle with Shawnee because his impact when he played was huge.
And look, I am totally with you guys. If I had to give a score without my asterisks, I'd probably be sitting with you guys. As I say, I'm giving mine just with a big bloody asterisk. And I said there's 2 players I got an asterisk for. So, yeah, we'll get there. The next one, as JD calls him, the barometer, Walter Brown. The barometer, because you generally know we're either winning or we're really going to lose badly when Walt gets to come onto the court, which is, a bit of it's a funny thing to watch when you sit there and the social media is going, and the moment Walt gets on, we can all generally tell whether we're well and truly won or we're just given minutes. I'm giving him a 5. We just didn't see enough of him. And when we did, he had some really effective minutes, but it wasn't consistent enough. There just wasn't enough to see. It'll be interesting. Have we got him signed again as a DP for next season? I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure there was a player option on that contract.
Yeah, that's what I thought. There was no.
I'm pretty sure he's got a full contract for next year. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it might even be a roster. It may even be a roster spot. I'd have to look at it, but I think he had 2 years as a DP with a roster spot thrown in. You might want to look that up, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it went.
The thing is that does concern me a little bit. Like, we didn't see enough of him, and if he's got a roster spot as part of the contractual agreement, I'm surprised we didn't see more of him. So then I do wonder what was going on at practices or behind the scenes, or was it just the player makeup? There just was no need to get him on the court as much. 5 from me. JB, kick us off.
I'll go with a 5 as well. It's sort of interesting, I suppose it all does depend where you fit in the team, right? So you go into a championship team that runs 8-9 deep. You then have guys that are moving to and from. You get really nice recruits. You have guys that step up. You have young guys that fit a role. For Walter Brown, his role realistically was playing that third string, you would think, behind a Ruben Tarangi and behind a Drimich, who were able to alternate with someone like a Krislovich, who was able to get on the pine there, and then someone like a Gack, who was obviously going to come on because they needed bigger bodies. Stoddart gets on because they need another guard. So where exactly he fits in that shuffle, I don't know. If he's got a player contract, it's going to be interesting to see how they use him, because you would think, and this is just from pure how you see it from a fan's perspective, you got a guy as a DP or a guy who's going through the stages of their contract. You're looking at someone like Shawnee Mack, who hit that target and went, wow, so we're going to see him next year. We're going to see him lift to another level. Same with Stoddart. Oh wow, he's gone to a start. Okay, so we can probably see him as a backup point guard next year. Things like that. Don't know where we see that with Walt. He's a pretty chill, relaxed guy, and from all reports, actually went out of his own way to get himself over from New Zealand when he first joined the team. From what I can gather, willingly flew himself over, bet on himself, and was like, look, I got nothing to lose. I'm here to find out. I think that's a great story, by the way. I think that really speaks about the kind of person he is, which is another thing you look at. Is he there from a culture standpoint as well? Like, hey, here's a guy who's bet on himself, who's backed himself in, who's here on his own accord to a certain extent, obviously now that he's contracted and being paid. Do you use that as an example for the young guys to go, hey, like, this guy's willingly bet on himself to get here and take your spot. So, maybe there's other factors at play as well. I'm happy with a 5.
Yeah, that's a good story. That didn't realise that. It almost sounds like, the work for Richo did and then got his opportunity. So
yeah, very similar from what I can gather. He heard there was a tryout. He flew himself over. There wasn't a management thing. It wasn't a contact thing. He literally said, you know what? I want to make a pro. I want to go pro. He's playing in the NBL. Why not? But what have I got to lose? Why not? And I think that was his attitude. So I think a 5's fitting.
JD?
He's an interesting one, Walter. I know the Canterbury Rams absolutely love him. They think he's the bee's knees. And we saw glimpses of it in the Blitz. I don't know if you're watching the footage there. He did a dunk. That was pretty cool. But he's just one of those guys, I think, that is just struggling to take it to the next level. I talk about Nick Stoddart and grabbing your opportunity when it comes. Walter's had 2 years of some opportunity now, and we still don't really know who he is as a player and what he provides. He looks a bit panicked. He looks worried when he's got the ball. His body language isn't great. I know there was one instance during one of the games this year where I think he missed a pass, and he really cursed himself. He was really hard on himself, which you don't mind, but you got to pick yourself up and move on and get to the next contest. I really struggle to see where Walter fits in and how we can use him, and even what sort of player he is based on the limited minutes we've seen him. I'm only giving him a 3 for this year. I really thought he had an opportunity to be the next Nick Stoddart, and he just didn't take those opportunities.
Fair. And remind me never to get you to mark any of my assignments. All right. And the last player in our player rankings, and this is the last player that I have got an asterisk on. That is big Will Magnay. Big Mags. Again, I'm doing a Sean MacDonald here, and I'm giving him a 9 with an asterisk, because when Mags is on, he's healthy and he's in, he made all the difference. And unfortunately, when we lost him to injury, that hurt dramatically. So I'm going with a 9 with the asterisk. Of course, that means that I'd have to give him lower, maybe a 6, 7, if I was taking the asterisks away. But I'm looking at it from his effect when he was on court, healthy, trying to take out the limited games. JB, kick us off.
Yeah, look, I have to go with 6, maybe a 7, because realistically, Will Magnay is the best centre in the NBL when he's healthy. We've got a freak athlete here who's jumping from halfway down the lane, catching oops, catching lobs, catching bodies on his own accord. A guy who's certainly not adverse to be able to handle the basketball, whether he's got his back to the basket, whether he's on a give and go, whether he needs to take a couple of dribbles. Certainly feel he's a lot safer with ball in hand than someone like a Fabian Krizlovic. And he's probably the best defender in the league. That's the kind of level we're talking about. There's a reason Will Magnay went to the NBA, right? There's a reason he was playing in New Orleans. It wasn't by fluke. There's a reason that he went to the Olympics. You know, when you want to put a bit of perspective on the size of Mags, I mean, Mags is a big guy. He's a huge athlete. He gets up and down the floor with ease. Health is obviously the concern, and I do feel for him because, you know, you look at some of the great big guys in history with sports and basketball, and the big thing that cuts them down is injuries to their legs. So, you know, always wanting a speedy recovery for Mags to be able to get in and be effective. Someone who goes to the Olympics, a backup center, you know, you're ticking a box there as one of the 3 best in the country. It's essentially the best center we've got that's not playing in the NBA. By the way, those rumors of him going to the Lakers, I'm so glad that he didn't go, because he did not need to be a sideshow for the clowns that are running that circus. That's another story for another day. Anyway. But really, really good to see him up and about. Just hope that he gets healthy, to be honest with you, because we're talking about arguably the best player in the league. Here's a guy that could be the defensive player of the year, that could be the MVP. Again, you talk about that NBA level stuff. It does show the difference in the league. I mean, he goes to the Olympics and he's out on the perimeter. He's guarding people like Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum. So there are clearly levels to it, because there were moments like, okay, dude, a little bit hard to try and keep you out on the perimeter. But when you look at the way the game's played here in Australia, when you look at the way the game's played at FIBA level, Mags is a perfect center. I would happily hand this guy a minimum 9 for all the health that he's had all throughout his career. But at times you look at it and go, Will Magnay's played 40% close to of the games as a jack jumper. So, you know, ceiling's here. Unfortunately, it's just the injuries that let him down at times. No issues with a 6 for his performance, 9 when he's healthy. I think he's the best big in the league.
Yep. JD?
Look, there were some players when we were doing this, and I was doing up the clips that were really hard to find highlights for. Will Magnay was not one of them. It was so easy. There was just so many highlights from the very few games that he played. That one right at the end there, where he was hanging off the ring and he put his legs around Zakarski's neck. So good. I love Will Magnay, and I wish he would play more. I'm tempted to give Clark Rubber a call and see if we can get some sort of sponsorship to make him some sort of suit just a foam suit to stop him from bumping into things, falling over himself. We need to figure out how to get Will Magnay on the court more, because he's an absolute gun. I can't add anything on top of what you two have already said. He's a gun, and we love him. We just need to see more of him. A 6.5. Yeah.
There.
You look at everything we've said. Look through all of these that we've spoken about. Either would have loved to have seen them play more, or geez, their game was impacted because of the injuries we had on this team, right?
Yeah.
So imagine what we could have delivered. We had an 8-game winning streak. We were top 2, top 3. We were playing MVP level basketball. We played 6 Man of the Year level basketball, Defensive Player of the Year, all of that sort of stuff. And injuries ultimately cut it down. I think that's imagine what we could be talking about right now. We're probably talking about Game 4. We're probably talking about Game 3 instead of, Melbourne and Illawarra, they're still running around having fun,
Yeah, exactly. Look, we've spoken about it before, and this was the season that really tested us. We've had 3 Magic seasons since our inception, and this was the season to test us. And I mean, there is no other team in the league that can say that after 3 seasons they'll pull away the chip. And, what comes up must come down. And it's a shame that we had to come down in season 4, but I think this will help us to really look deep, really take a look at the team, what we need to move forward. I hope culturally it doesn't fray. I hope we continue to continue with the Jackie's way, the grit and grind, and I think under Roffey we will continue to do so. I think the team's going to look different, and over the coming weeks we will talk about what the team looks like. We will hear more from free agency. We'll start to hear, contracts being locked in and whatever else. One thing we do know with the Jackies is they keep it all pretty close to their chest. I'll tell you what, Roffey must have one of the best poker faces ever. You can't get much from him. I'm looking forward to next season. I really am. I think it's going to be exciting. I think we're going to feel every bit of the emotions as players are not re-signed, as new players come in, as the team looks very different. But I think it is going to really allow us to grow as a team and as a club community. So, I'm excited for NBL 25-26. All right, well, that brings us to the end of this episode. The player rankings are done. Hopefully, our listeners have enjoyed hearing us prattle on and give our absolutely high-level insights into the season. JB, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Really appreciate it.
No, anytime, fellas. It's always good, always fun to dribble on and have a bit of a chat. Especially with the season now wrapping up. Again, if you need anything during the year, just sing out, although I will not be just used and abused for a viewership spike. Thank you very much.
Oh, mate, we're going to use and abuse you like nobody's business.
Thank you.
Do keep an eye out, guys. As we're coming up to the Easter break, the holiday camps, the JackJumper holiday camps are in full effect. I'm not going to sit here and rattle off dates. Jump over to the JackJumpers website and get amongst that. Get your littlies out there. I know my kids have gone off to a couple of them. They're an absolute ball terror. Banjo sponsors it, so you get, they go away with a few party pies and sausage rolls and whatever else. Do like a little Banjos. Banjos, if you're listening, I do like you a lot. Maybe you'd like to help a brother out, hear what I'm saying here. But they also walk away with a basketball and an opportunity to, meet Jack the Jumper and maybe some of the Jack Jumpers as well. So great fun and a great way to keep the kids out there on the court. And, of course, also take a look too. I'm sure Swisher will have their holiday camps coming up as well, and that's also fun. My kids have also done those as well, and they're also good fun as well. All right, gents. Well, that's it for another week. Gentlemen, march on.